Can you tell me about the business model of the future?
Well, I'll try to.
Yeah.
We're living a very interesting time because all the models of the 20th century are challenged, and the number of crises that we underwent are a kind of proof of that. So we're at a time where we can redesign the business models of our society. And we see that emerging trends and emerging business models occur in very various fields, and we decided to focus on open, collaborative, and responsible business models for two reasons mainly. Because first, we think that they participate to, let's say, rebuilding a society more open, more collaborative, and more responsible. And the other reason is that, well, we see that those business models are not yet, the proof is not made on which business would be sustainable, which business model would be sustainable. So, in our opinion, we can only rebuild something new through these three kind of business. Opened comes from the open source field in the software industry since the 80s. And now we see that open business models are now emerging in manufacturing. And we see that some entrepreneurs build companies on an open source way, even for manufacturing. So that's interesting for us. Collaborative relies both on, let's say, the collaboration that take place between individuals, peer-to-peer actions, without going through another corporation or an organization. People, they are acting together, solving problems collaboratively. And the other way of seeing it is that more and more the standard or traditional organizations, well, they feel that they need to work on that collaboration aspect, referring to their employees, how could they collaborate more easily, and referring to their ecosystem, how each corporation could collaborate inside an ecosystem. And the third one is responsible, and we are working on business models that are sometimes called shared value business models. Companies that both have a social impact and an economic impact. Companies that try to tackle a main issue like education, starvation, access to water, etc. And they do not rely on public funding or on donations. They're building businesses with shareholders, with clients, with turnover. And we feel that those models are really interesting. And the question for the three models is, what are the drivers of sustainability? How to scale up those initiatives that are today very interesting, emergent, but the scope and the scale is still limited. And the questions that we're asking ourselves is, what are the conditions to have those models scaling up?
Okay. And so when you have in a situation where you're providing access to water, who will be where's the revenue coming from when you say that there are no
Okay, so I have an example of I think it's a company from the UK. It's called 819, and it's a company that developed a technology of solar-based power. And their market, let's say, is the people that do not have any electricity in Western Africa, I think. And they decided not to get to United Nations or to get funding, they decided to build a company. And they said, okay, if we build a company, well, we need clients. And our clients would be the people that will use the technology. That's to say, these poor populations. So they had to switch their way of thinking and saying, okay, those people that are very poor, they're going to be our clients. Okay, but they do not have the money to pay the technology. So how can we do this? And they decided to not to sell the product, but to sell the use. That's to say that the people are buying 1 minute of usage of that solar powered generator. And that's a way of, let's say, scaling up, because you do not rely on public fundings, you rely on the people that are using your technology or using your product or your service. But you have to find a way to make that product or technology accessible to these people that do not have, that have very limited spending power. And that's an interesting example of those shared value business models. They first have a social value, facilitating access to electricity to people that do not have access. And at the same time, they have economic or traditional corporate objectives. Having customers, they're funded by shareholders who expect a return on their investment. And that's an example of
of a different
business model.
Business model.